Hello, everyone. Our topic for today is religion and ethnicity. Or, in other words, to what extent is it true that an individual's ethnic background would affect their level of religiosity? As we speak about levels of religiosity over here, we are to take into account religious beliefs as well as religious practices. Without any further ado, let's begin. If we speak about the UK, if we speak about the UK, it is believed by many, and we have a lot of evidence in support of this idea too, that many individuals in the UK from the ethnic minority background, you'd see them being more religious as compared to the locals there. You see them more religious, you'd see them being more religious as compared to the Britishers or members of the ethnic majority background. Now, as we speak about religiosity over here, we are referring to religiosity being shown through religious practice, as well as religiosity being shown through the way it influences an individual's or a social group's life. Now, giving this a read, most evidence suggests that members of ethnic minority groups in Western countries such as Britain are more likely than majority ethnic groups to see themselves as religious. Religions that are mainly followed by minority ethnic groups are more likely to be practiced by believers. One. Number two, and the religion is more likely to influence their lives. Now, this, like I said, we have ample of evidence that supports this idea. Nonetheless, there are always exceptions that exist. Being sociology students, you should always be careful to not sound very absolute about anything, to not sound very certain about anything. Now, as we take this discussion ahead, there would be three key thinkers that I'd like to take into discussion today. We'd start off with John Bird. Number two, we'd speak about Steve Bruce. And number three, we'd speak about George Preside. And to complement these three, I'd also bring in uh, Ken Price. I'd also bring in Ken Price under discussion as well as Maguire. Now, we'd start off with John Bird here. John Bird provided explanations for high levels of religiosity amongst members of ethnic minority. John Bird in 1999 identified five important reasons for high levels of religiosity amongst members of ethnic minority groups. So, to repeat, John Bird in 1999 came forward with five different reasons as to how he thought or as to why he thought members from ethnic minority groups were more religious as compared to members of ethnic majority group in the Britain. To begin with, the first point, according to Bird, one of the possible explanation could be in terms of the origins, in terms of where the members of ethnic minority groups originated from. For instance, if you talk about a family that moved from Pakistan to the UK, their country of origin would be Pakistan. And now, if you talk about a comparison between Pakistan and the UK, Pakistan is seen to be more religious as compared to the UK. Now, according to Bird, when these individuals they move from a particular country like Pakistan, like the example that I'm giving you of Pakistan to the UK, there's a high possibility that they'd continue being more religious. So the first reason is origin the first reason has to do with the origin of those ethnic minority members. Many ethnic minority groups originate in societies with high levels of religiosity. For example, Pakistan and Bangladesh have high levels of religious observance and belief, right? Belief and observance. When we use the word observance, observance could be taken into observance could be religious practice as well as the extent to which it affects an individual's life. So, first generation immigrants tend to bring these high levels of religiosity to the UK. Who are first level of or who are first generation immigrants here? When we speak about first generation immigrants, individuals who have moved themselves, of course, when they move to the UK, they'd if they married, they'd have children, then their children would have children. So when they'd have children, the children would be the second generation. When their children would have children, that would be the third generation. So to sum it up, the first reason, according to Bird, is their country of origin. Their country of origin. According to Bird, people from ethnic minority backgrounds, you see them being more religious because this is something that they bring from their country of origin. Like I said, Pakistan, I'm sorry, like I said, Pakistan is more religious as compared to the UK. So when you're moving from Pakistan to the UK, the likelihood that you'd carry that religiosity with you is always there. One. Number two, moving on to the second explanation over here. I'm sure many of you would agree to this. Religion has been playing a very important role in terms of bringing in community solidarity, togetherness, integration. For members of ethnic minority groups, as we read, religion acts as a basis for community solidarity. Now, solidarity based on religious affiliation can perform important social functions for the new migrants as well. For instance, religions for instance, if we talk about new migrants, they get a point of contact through their religion, right? There are so many countries, there are so many developed countries where there are community centers that are built. Like there's a Pakistani community center in Toronto, so on and so forth. Now, but for now, as we speak about John Bird, we're referring to the UK here. So, solidarity based on religious affiliation can perform important social functions for new migrants, giving them a point of contact in a new country, a source of marriage partners, and they get a lot of help in terms of welfare too. So the first point was the country of origin. The second point over here is religion playing its role in terms of bringing in community solidarity. Moving on towards the third point now. Bird argued that maintaining a religious commitment is also a way also a way to maintain other aspects of cultural identity too. So your religious identity complements your cultural identity in terms of the language spoken, in terms of art, in terms of history, in terms of patterns of marriage, your cuisine, your festivities, religious and otherwise. So, Bird argues that maintaining a religious commitment is also a way to maintain other aspects of cultural identity. Now, these other aspects of cultural identity could be the language spoken, your art, your patterns of marriage, cooking, so on and so forth. Religion and ethnic religion and minor religion and minority ethnic cultures can be mutually reinforcing. So we've spoke about three factors so far. Moving on to the fourth point. The fourth reason as to why John Bird thinks individuals from ethnic minority background are more religious is probably because of family pressure. It's probably because of the socialization process that they go through. The socialization, the religious socialization has been done in such a strong manner that the commitment towards religion continues to stay strong. In many cases, individuals or younger individuals experience a lot of family pressure. They experience a lot of pressure from their, let's say, first generation of immigrants, from their parents, that results in them being more religious. Now, reading this, the importance of religion can be maintained through socialization, and there is often strong family pressure to maintain religious commitment, which eventually makes them more religious. So we're done with four factors. Moving on to the fifth factor, according to John Bird, 1999. Try memorizing these references right away. This reference by John Bird is pretty strong and could be used as sociological material for your evaluative essay question. Now, the fifth point over here, some minority ethnic groups might also have strong religious beliefs because it helps them cope with oppression. Now, moving, when you're leaving your country of origin, when you're leaving the country where you actually belong to and moving to another country, how sure or how certain could you be that you would be warmly welcomed? I mean, it would be amazing if that always happens, but unfortunately, that does not. There are many ethnic minority groups who when members of those ethnic minority groups, they're moving to another country, they aren't really welcomed well. They aren't really welcomed, and in many cases they end up facing a lot of oppression as well. And of course, when you're leaving your own country and moving to another, you take that decision because you want to live a better life with more of economic stability, with more of security as compared to the country of your origin. So Disadvantaged minority ethnic groups tend to be working class, and their religious beliefs can be seen as a response to their position in the social structure. It's really important that we understand this line. I will highlight this. I know this is going to turn out to be super colorful, but let's bear with it for now. The purple part now. Disadvantaged minority ethnic groups tend to be usually from the working class. We're talking about a combination over here, combination between ethnicity and social class. So, disadvantaged minority ethnic groups tend to be working class, and their religious beliefs can be seen as a response to their position in the social structure. So, they're probably religious according to Bird because of social reasons, because the position that they hold, because the marginalized position that they hold within the society, within the social structure, because it's so low, they take help from religion in itself helps them cope up with this oppression. So Bird suggests that we have an example of Pentecostalism over here. Bird suggests that Pentecostalism might perform a dual function for British African Caribbeans. We're talking about Pentecostals over here. According to John Bird in 1999, he suggests that Pentecostalism might be performing a dual function for who? For British African Caribbeans. First, it can be a way to adjust to a society in which they face discrimination and social injustice. The first way. Pentecostalism can act as an opium of the people, like Karl Marx put it. Now, opium of the people, opium is a drug, it sedates you, it helps you feel better in this context only. So, Pentecostalism can act as the opium of the people. One. Number two, second, it can also help people to combat disadvantages by improving their social and economic position. So, according to John Bird, in cases where immigrants experience oppression, religion is typically a source for them to be able to bear with this oppression. To exemplify this, Bird gave an example of Pentecostals, and according to Bird, there are two major ways through which the British African Caribbeans, they take help from their religion. The first one was, according to Bird, religion helps them adjust to the society well, adjust to the British society well. It helps them face discrimination better and to be able to deal with social injustice. Number two, according to Bird again, 1999, it can also help people to combat disadvantage by improving their social as well as their economic position. Now, for example, Ken Price pointed out that Pentecostalism encouraged hard work and thrift, which could result in Pentecostalists gaining greater economic security. Now, the second point over here is being supported by Ken Price in 1979. Now, we're done with John Bird. Let's take this ahead and talk about Steve Bruce. Uh, Steve Bruce believed that individuals are probably religious individuals, or rather say ethnic minority individuals, they're probably religious because of social religions more and religious commitment less. Let me repeat this. According to Steve Bruce, if we think ethnic minority members are more religious as compared to members of ethnic majority, a possible explanation to this could be that they are religious because of social reasons and not because of any sort of very deep religious commitment. Now, why is it that Steve Bruce thinks this? To be able to explain this, Bruce uses the examples of cultural defense and cultural transition. We'd speak about the difference between the two in a minute. So, Bruce argues that minority ethnic groups are more likely to engage in religious activity than the ethnic majority, mainly due to social reasons. Now, religious activity, this could be seen as religious practice, right? I hope you all do get the difference between religious practice and religious belief. Now, Bruce argues that minority ethnic groups are more likely to engage in religious activity than the ethnic majority groups, mainly due to social reasons. The vitality of religion is largely a response to the social situation of minority ethnic groups rather than an expression of deep religious commitment. Bruce sees the strengths of minority ethnic groups as caused by, now, according to C. Bruce, The strength of ethnic minority members is usually through either cultural defense or cultural transition, right? Now, what exactly is cultural defense over here? Cultural defense, or when you use your religious identity to be able to protect your cultural identity, right? Now, your religious solidarity, your religious togetherness, you use that to protect your sense of identity, you to protect your sense of cultural identity as well as religious identity. Cultural defense, where an ethnic group is protecting its sense of identity and maintaining ethnic pride through religion, right? When an ethnic group is protecting its sense of identity and maintaining ethnic pride through religion, right? For instance, if Muslim females wear hijab, or rather say continue wearing hijab in the Western world, one, they maintaining their sense of identity. Number two, they're showing to the world that they hold pride in this. Number two, cultural transition, where an ethnic group uses religion to cope with the upheavals of migration. As we speak about the upheavals of migration, migration, when you're moving from one country to another, in this case when you're leaving your country of origin and moving to another host country or host society, of course that would include that would include uncertainty, right? In an uncertain situation, religion could play a very important role in terms of helping you cope up with the situation. Now, for this, you could additionally read through the functions perspective on religion. There's a video available uh, on this there's a video available on this as well. You might as well go through those two videos. There are two parts, I believe. You go through that, and you'd be able to connect this part to the functionist perspective of religion as well. So cultural transition, where an ethnic group uses religion to cope with the upheavals of migration. These two problems can work together as immigrant minority ethnic groups try to both adapt and defend their religious and cultural heritage. Now, understand this, read through this and try understanding this. These two processes can work together as immigrant minority groups try to both adapt and defend their religious and cultural heritage. Now, adapt what? Adapt to the lifestyle in the host society, let's just say UK, and defend their religious or cultural heritage from their country of origin. You could say, as an example, Pakistan, right? We have another example by Maguire, but I'm just doing this to help you understand this better. So, to adapt to a newer country and at the same time to be able to defend your own culture as well. For example, Meredith McGuire describes how Vietnamese American Buddhists, so Vietnamese American Buddhists, simultaneously attempt to continue socializing their children into their own culture and also to gain acceptance in US society. Now, one, they continue to socialize their children into their own culture, right? They're adapting. Number two, they try to gain acceptance in the US society as well. They're trying to help their children fit into the American society as well. She describes how in Houston, Texas, Vietnamese community has created their temple with many features reminiscent of Vietnam. However, the temple is also used as a community center, assisting people to integrate into the US society. For example, by facilitating networking, you could facilitate them network better, and better networking could help them get better jobs. To negotiate a Buddhist religion's identity and work to have it accepted as legitimate in their new community. As we read it earlier, as I tried explaining this to you earlier, they are trying to adapt to a new community at the same time, not wanting to let go of their cultural heritage. Now, taking this ahead, let's move on and discuss if religion is experiencing a decline or is it experiencing a revival for ethnic minority religions. Remember, my dear, what I'd said at the beginning was we would be discussing three key thinkers that include John Bird, Steve Bruce, and George Cresside. Along with that, there would be two more sociologists, two more thinkers, two more sociologists again that we would use to complement these three, and they would be Ken Price and Maguire. So, getting back to this subtopic again, is religion amongst ethnic minority groups experiencing a decline, or is it being revived? Steve Bruce argues that over time, minority ethnic groups in many Western societies become more integrated in the Western societies and increasingly influenced by wider secular society. So, over the period of time, according to Steve Bruce, when individuals from ethnic minority group, they would, the more years they spend in the Western society, the more likely it is that they would get integrated within that society, which would eventually lead to them being more secular, to them being affected by secularization as well. Now, secularization is when religion experiences a decline. I'd like to assume all of you know this. And additionally, secularization is the most popular topic in terms of our CAIEs. Now, as a consequence, the religious beliefs will decline, right? So when you get more integrated in the Western society, when you get more affected by the secular, when you get more affected by secular ideas, eventually, or rather say, as a consequence, your own religious beliefs would be experiencing a decline. George Cresside in 1994 argues that in Britain, the religion of immigrant groups and their descendants have had three main paths. So it has taken three main directions, this, and this, let's just say. The first over here, according to Cresside, is apostasy. The second, according to Cresside, is accommodation. The third, according to Cresside, is renewed vigor. Let's talk about the difference amongst these three. Now, what exactly does he mean when he uses the word apostasy? What exactly does he mean when he talks about accommodation? And what exactly does he mean when he talks about, or when he refers to renewed vigor? Now, to begin with, the first being apostasy. What is apostasy, or what comes in our mind when we talk about apostasy in this context? This is when you, being a member of an ethnic minority group, might let go of might let go of your religious teachings in the wider host society, right? So it's more like, oh, we have a very good example over here. For example, a Sikh might convert to Christianity, right? A Sikh might convert to Christianity. So what you did was you let go of your religions, right? Apostasy, when a particular set of religious beliefs is abundant in a hostile environment. One, the example, a Sikh might convert to Christianity. Number two, the second path, or the second option, right? We're done with this. Now we're doing this one. The second one over here is accommodation. When religious practices are adapted to take into account the change situation. For instance, again, a very good example over here. If a Sikh simply removes his turban because he believes it could improve his chances at a job interview. So the word accommodation pretty much explains it all. You are trying to accommodate, you're trying to fit into the new environment, right? So when religious practices are adapted, or they changed, keeping in mind the social situation, keeping in mind the new situation, right? So a Sikh could continue being a Sikh could continue following Sikhism, but at the same time let go of the turban that I'm sure you all do know Sikhs wear. Number three, we'd speak about renewed vigor. What comes in your mind when you talk about renewed vigor, right? So this is when religion is reasserted. It's more like someone moving from Pakistan to the UK. That's someone not being very religious in Pakistan, maybe, but as they move to UK, they end up following religion more. They end up practicing religion more, or the religious beliefs get stronger. When the religion is reasserted more strongly as a response to actual or perceived hostility towards it, right? So as a response to, remember, as a response to actual or perceived hostility, right? Either that hostility is for real, or that's a perception that you're simply carrying, right? So renewed vigor, when the religion is reasserted, right, when you're getting more religious, mainly as a response to the hostility that you think your religion is experiencing. For example, parents might insist on strong religious orthodoxy from their children because they see odds going against them. They see that the society is not very religious. In that case, they'd want to reassert religion towards their children. Taking this ahead, Cresside acknowledges that minority ethnic groups have faced difficulties in Britain. So, Cresside acknowledges that minority ethnic groups have faced difficulties in religion. They have had to establish places of prayer and deal with situations in which religious observation might be very difficult. We know of so many instances. However, he argues that general pattern has been characterized. This is again important. The general pattern has been characterized by accommodation and renewed vigor rather than apostasy. Remember, there were three different paths that we had spoken about that Chryssite had referred to. The first being apostasy, the second being accommodation, and third being renewed vigor. So, according to Chryssite, the general pattern that has been witnessed is that individuals have moved more towards accommodation or towards renewed vigor and less towards apostasy. So, the likelihood that individuals from ethnic minority background would simply let go of their religion is very low. However, the chances of them accommodating into the new situation and at the same time sticking to the religious value, or on the other hand, as an extreme, reasserting their religious values has always been higher. Buildings have been bought and converted into mosques and temples, and religious beliefs and practices have been retained or adapted rather than abandoned. For example, many Muslim women have found ways to dress modestly while incorporating Western elements in their clothing. Now, this is pretty much it, and I hope this has been helpful. We were talking about the extent to which the ethnic background you come from would affect your levels of religiosity. This particular question could be used if you are tested on the effect the social group you belong to has on your religiosity. The examiner could be more specific, referring to religious beliefs, or could be referring to religious practices. So, yeah, this I believe I would like to hope that this helped. Feel free to ask any questions if you have any. Take good care of yourselves. Stay happy, healthy, safe, and protected. Stay humble. Spread positivity. And Allah Hafiz.